Hi guys, it's just gone 12 o'clock and I probably look tired, but I'm not too tired enough to sleep, so I thought I might as well film this video now, seeing as either way I feel like it's going to be up a little too late to what I had wanted it to be up to. But anyway, that is my December and I guess end of year wrap up, even though I'm not including all the books, it's just my December wrap up, and my year-a-thon TBR for the January theme. So I'm going to start with all the books that I read in December and then tell you what I hope to read for January. So the first book I got finished was Percy Jackson and the Greek Gods by Rick Riordan. I want to kind of call this a sort of retelling, but it's not really, because it's not a story book. It's kind of a funny factual insight into 12 of the most popular heroes, spoken of course by Percy Jackson's wonderful charismatic voice. I gave this a 4 stars. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. I kind of see it as a companion to the series, but maybe don't read it unless you read the majority of the Percy Jackson books, just because it might hint at little bits, like when Percy says his little sidelines, it might hint at things that have happened in the book, and obviously you don't want to get spoiled at that, so that's why I'd recommend reading this kind of after you've read the majority. Next I read Art is Dead, the Asdaf book by Tom Scar. I gave this a 4 stars. It's pretty much all of Tom Scar's kind of Asdaf movies written down in comic form, how they originally were I believe, as well as some never before seen little comic bits. Really thought it was funny. Doesn't flow as much as the Asdaf movies does, but I mean it is comic form, you kind of have to expect that I suppose. I loved the humour, it's just so dry and unacceptable but amazing, so I gave it a 4 stars. By the way, all the comics and graphic novels that I read is mostly because I was taking part in the year-a-thon theme, which was to read graphic novels, picture books, all that sort of stuff, so that's why I have so many to show you. The next one here I have to show you is Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book Volume 1. I recently bought Volume 2, so I hope to get to that soon. This is amazing. I gave it 4 stars. Basically following a young boy called Nobody Owens who lives in a graveyard, and he's told all his time growing up there that he can't leave the graveyard because he faces a danger of what's outside. His parents, like his real parents, are murdered and everything, and he just wants to know why he can't leave, and he goes on lots of little adventures surrounding the graveyard and things like that to kind of, I don't know, make friends and kind of be his own little person. I was worried because it's split in 2 volumes that it was going to feel choppy, but not at all. Didn't really. I also found, most shockingly to myself, that it's not kind of one cohesive storyline, it's kind of a few separate ones all in itself. I guess they kind of flow together, I don't know, but I think you could happily read them as they are. I love the fact that it's illustrated by loads of different artists. I found that the art used for each chapter perfectly fitted it, and I was worried that it was going to kind of be unconnected and choppy, but I didn't find that at all. It just introduced me to a whole load of new artists that I can look out for in comic books and graphic novels, and I just thought it was fabulous. I gave it 4 stars. Next one I read is A Manga and Its Bakamon by Tsugumi Obata and Takeshi Obata, the creators of the Death Note series. I gave it 3 stars. Did I say this was volume 2? It's volume 2. I preferred the first one over this one, but just basically it's a kind of slice of life story about 2 young high school kids. They want to be manga creators, and it's literally about them creating a manga and the hard work that goes into it, and a little bit of love interest going on there, but it's not too much, it's not overwhelming, it's quite cute and cringy. I do really love this series. I just gave this, I think, a lower star rating. I think I gave the first one like a 4 star or something, just because I thought that was better than this, but it was still great to read and I do want to continue on with the series. Tiredness is finally catching up with me. Next thing I've got here, I've got a review for this and the graphic novel I'm going to be showing after. I did a dual review, so when that's uploaded maybe I'll link it down below. But this is Username Evie by Joe Sugg. I gave it 2 stars just because it wasn't really what I was hoping for. I was kind of expecting maybe a sci-fi, not exactly fantasy, but kind of like a sci-fi alter ego life sort of thing. I don't really know. I was just not expecting what I got. It was just, it didn't flow very well. It felt too mashed up, if that makes sense. Like, situations didn't make sense in certain scenes, and characters didn't make sense with some of their decisions, and it was just a little bit too choppy. I explain a lot more in the dual review that I just mentioned, so check that out when that's arrived. But yeah, I gave this a 2 stars. Thankfully, something to pick me up after that little bit of a disaster was my 4-star rating graphic novel. This is The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins, the second book that I did the dual review for. This one is following Dave, this man, this middle-aged man who lives on this island called Howdee-haie, and everything's very organised, very particular. Everything's tidy and clean. Yeah, but one day Dave goes through some unsettling growths in terms of the hair department. The plot thickens, I guess you could say, and things take its turn. It's really, really interesting. Again, I go into so much more detail in the review that I mentioned, so I'm just going to leave that here. 4-star review from me. Okay, and then I read 2 other books that I don't have with me because I borrowed them from the library, and it was the first 2 books in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy of 5-part series. So I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. So starting with the first book first, I gave that a 4 stars. I don't know what made me fall in love with the book. It was just such random nonsense and just such a silly, peculiar plot, if you can say that it had one. But I just think it's got something, some sort of charm that just made me love it and gave it such a high rating. I really did enjoy reading it, I honestly did. The characters were so witty, their humour was fabulous, I just loved it. I was laughing out loud at quite a few scenes, just thinking, are they really having this conversation? It's just like, the word that I hate the most, they had really great banter because it was just back and forth, and I was like, whoa, this is like watching an actual live physical conversation. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So I gave that a 4-star. Again, as I mentioned in all my wrap-up videos and stuff, if you go to my Goodreads link and look up like some of my reviews, you'll see most of the time more detailed reviews than what I'm saying here because I'm trying to shorten it a little bit. Yeah, but then I read The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, and sadly that sort of missed out on that 2-star mark for me. I gave it 2-star, not the 4-star that I gave the first book. I just didn't think that this one flowed as well. I'm really sorry, there's something in my eye. Because of the setting I was reading it in, I was waiting in the hospital and it was just clammy and annoying and irritating. I zoned in more on the faults, if you want to call it that. I kind of realised how silly and nonsensical it is, and that kind of irritated me because I'm like, well, where's the plot? What's going on? This isn't as great or as enjoyable as I had felt when I was reading the first book, but I was hoping that it was just because of the setting that I started it in. As I said, no, it carried on until I finished the whole book. I don't know why I thought that way, but I'm really hoping the third one in the series kind of picks me up from that, because I didn't want to dislike it, but I did, especially compared to the first one. So 2 stars for me. Okay, next one I read was Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan. I'm picking this up and putting it down, picking it up and putting it down without actually starting it for a while. I wanted to read it for the LGBTQ A Year-a-thon theme, but I never got around to it. I don't know why. But yeah, this is about 2 Will Graysons that funnily enough just randomly meet, but it doesn't go in the way that you'd probably expect it to. Once you read it and you're like, oh, okay, it might go this way. It doesn't, in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars. I kind of disliked it in the very, very beginning, and though I started loosening up and enjoying more bits that were happening throughout, something was just holding me and like nagging at me, like, you didn't like this in the beginning, you shouldn't like it now. But I think overall I did enjoy it, especially the ending scenes. The ending couple of chapters really sold me. I really, really loved it, and I think that's what gave it the 3 stars rather than the 2 that I was kind of leaning towards. And then I decided to dive back into the Rosario vampire world with volume 6. This is by Akisa Ikedaya. I always mess up that name. I gave it 3 stars, same formula as always. If you've seen some of my other wrap-ups where I've mentioned this, kind of like a fight scene, and then they're either friends or they don't see them until another couple of episodes, and just people don't learn their lesson in this series. They don't learn their lessons. Pick your fights wisely, okay? You should all leave Skune and Mocha alone, because bad things will happen if you don't. But yeah, I do love this series. It's fun. Like, I've read it a few times in the past since I was like maybe 14, but I've never finished the series. But reading it again now, hopefully gonna finish the series this time, I am seeing how silly it is and how kind of weird bits are, but I don't know, I still like it. I think it's because I read it from such a young age. It's just there with me. I do enjoy it. So yeah, I gave that 3 stars. And lastly, what I read was Death, The High Cost of Living by Neil Gaiman, Chris Bacalo, Mark Buchanan and Dave McKean. I was happy to find out that this was actually Death as in the Sandman character Death, which the series I haven't read yet, but I've read a book about Neil Gaiman's Death Before by an author called Jill Thompson. It was Death at Death's Door, and I loved her in that, and I don't know why I haven't gone back to more of her character and more of that world, but yeah, I finally did. Sadly, I didn't enjoy it as much as I was hoping to. I gave it 2 stars. I don't really feel too much to it. I don't think that, it's not that I hated it, I just didn't feel any love for it. It was just like, the plot was very basic. It didn't really feel necessary in my life. I could have gone without reading this, but I'm happy I got it because Joe found it and was excited to give it to me, so I kind of feel bad having these feelings, but it just wasn't amazing what I was hoping for. I also didn't understand the random section at the back. It's not a spoiler because the story's finished by this point. It's like a weird sex ed section, and I don't understand what that was about. Maybe at the time it was published that was a big thing, but yeah, that threw me off guard a little bit, so I gave that 2 stars. Me saying that made it sound like I gave it 2 stars because of that weird bit at the back, but that's not why. I gave it 2 stars before I got to that part, pretty much. But yes, that's all I read in December. I read quite a few books. I'm really happy. I know I'm not going to get that much done in January, so that's why my TBR that I'm going to show you in a minute is only very small, just because I've got exams in uni. And I just don't feel like I'm going to get enough reading done in, like, you know, casual personal reading. They're a little bit bigger, but one's not actually a proper book, and the other one I feel like I can just casually read throughout the month if it needs to. And also I'm reading a book at the moment which is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll, and it's only a very small one, but it's taken me a little while to be reading it. So yeah, I don't feel like I want to be overwhelmed with loads of books. So the Ayerathon's theme for January is bench warmers, so books that have been sitting on your shelf for a little while, and these haven't been sitting on my shelf for the longest time. Like, I've got older books, but these are ones I kind of have been wanting to get to soon, and I keep again pushing them off. So this time it's from January 4th to January 10th, the first full week of the month. So yeah, the books I want to get to are Tamara Vermes's Look Who's Back, a novel. This is basically kind of like I want to say an alternate history, but it's kind of not, kind of is. Basically, Hitler doesn't die and he wakes up, I think, in the future, and he says he's Hitler and everything. He still has the same ideals and all that sort of stuff in his regime in his head, but everybody's filming it, and it's kind of like Big Brother. It's all reality TV and stuff like that, so that's going to be interesting. Kind of a controversial read, so I am looking forward to getting to that, and hopefully I do this month. And then I Love You Baby